And today I'm going to be presenting on protein, ghrelin, and appetite control. The question I'm going to be asking is, how does a high protein diet affect ghrelin production and appetite control? And how can it be a tool to help obese patients lose weight? So first, before we get into anything else, we have to understand macronutrients. Macronutrients are essential to the diet in large amounts. This is where your body gets its energy from in the form of calories. Carbohydrates are the first one we're going to be talking about. The acceptable macronutrient range for carbohydrates are 45 to 65% of your diet, and some examples of foods high in carbohydrates are potatoes, breads, and grains. Next is fats. The acceptable macronutrient range for fats is 20 to 35% of your diet, and some examples of foods high in fats are nuts, oil, and butter. Next, we have proteins. So for proteins, the acceptable macronutrient range is between 10 and 35% of your diet, and some examples of foods high in proteins are seafood, eggs, and meats. The three macronutrients are treated differently in the digestive tract, being absorbed in different ways and affecting hormones differently. So next up, we're going to be discussing ghrelin, what it is, and what it does. So what exactly is ghrelin? Ghrelin is a dietary hormone that is involved in energy balance regulation. It essentially produces the desire to eat. Ghrelin levels rise before eating and are suppressed during the ingestion of food. High ghrelin levels make you feel hungry, while low ghrelin levels make you feel full. This dietary hormone is secreted from the stomach and it produces these desires to eat. So next we're going to be talking about how the different macronutrients affect ghrelin production. The suppression of ghrelin post-meal is proportional to the macronutrients ingested. High carbohydrate meals produced the greatest drop on ghrelin levels after consumption in comparison to the other macronutrients of fats and proteins. This means that you feel the most full after eating meals high in carbohydrates. On the other hand, high-fat meals less effectively suppressed ghrelin than the other two macronutrients of carbohydrates and proteins. High-fat meals produced less of an initial drop in ghrelin, and it also didn't suppress the hormone for as long as the other two macronutrients. Essentially, this means that you won't feel as full after consuming a meal high in fats. Next, high protein meals showed an inhibition on ghrelin production for a greater amount of time than carbohydrates or fats. This means that after consuming high protein meals, you are going to feel fuller for longer. Next, we're going to be discussing how ghrelin production is different in obese subjects as opposed to subjects that were a healthy weight. In obese subjects, ghrelin levels were lower in comparison to those who were at a healthy weight. Obese subjects, however, did experience a decrease in ghrelin levels post-meal compared to their baseline amount. This can also be seen in healthy weight individuals. The lower baseline level of ghrelin in obese subjects is an adaptation to the greater amount of adipose tissue or stored energy in these individuals. This can be reversible with weight loss, so as someone loses weight, their ghrelin levels will return back to a normal level for someone of a healthy weight. High-protein meals will have a similar effect on ghrelin levels compared to their baseline, whether an individual is obese or a healthy weight. So next, we're going to discuss evidence and how all this information was discovered. So, different studies, which will be listed in the Works Cited page, conducted trials in which they fed adolescents and adults, obese and healthy weights, different diets, high and different macronutrients. Ghrelin levels were measured for each diet. They were measured for high carbohydrate diets, high protein diets, and high fat diets. These studies also took into account obese patients and noticed obese patients had lower levels of ghrelin in general, not just post-meal. Changes in ghrelin post-meal were similar in obese and healthy weight individuals when taking into account baseline levels. So next, I'll be discussing recommendations and conclusions from the information found in these different studies. So first, manipulating the numbers of the acceptable macronutrient range in an individual's diet can lead to different results in ghrelin inhibition after meals. High-protein diets produced a longer inhibition of ghrelin production in the body, keeping higher levels of satiety for longer. Next, a high-protein diet is a great way overall to lose weight. It will maintain levels of satiety for longer than high-carbohydrate or high-fat diets, helping with appetite control. Next, a high-protein diet can have benefits as well, such as preserving fat-free mass in a caloric deficit. This can be helpful when obese patients have a negative energy balance and are trying to lose weight. Finally, obesity can be genetic, and with certain genes, you can be more susceptible to becoming obese. Environmental factors, however, can counteract that risk. For example, with eating a high-protein diet. So essentially, my overall summary and main point is that, in conclusion, the high-protein diet will leave a person feeling fuller for longer, not feeling the need to eat as soon as they would after a high carbohydrate or high-fat meal, therefore promoting a negative energy balance while also maintaining fat-free mass. So here are all my cited works where I got all the information for my slideshow. And finally, thank you so much for watching and listening.